The Philadelphia Eagles hopefully have 4 games left in them this season. Philadelphia will begin its quest to the Super Bowl against the Green Bay Pacers in the National Football League wildcard round on Sunday, January 12. If the Eagles can make it past the Packers, then they will move on to the divisional round against either the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or Washington Commanders. A win there would push them to the NFC Championship and 1 game away from the Super Bowl. There's a lot to like about this Eagles team. They have done everything that has been asked of them this season. Hopefully, they can make a deep playoff run. Once the playoffs end, there will be some tough decisions that need to be made by the Eagles. Philadelphia surely will bring some new players this upcoming offseason, but there could be some players on the move as well. Fansided's Devin Platana made a list of 4 players who may not return next season and mentioned fan favorite running back Kenneth Gainwell. The 2024 campaign marked Kenneth Gainwell's 4th with the Eagles after being drafted 150th overall by the franchise in 2020, Platana said. Although he won't put on performances similar to Saquon Barkley, the veteran running back has been a reliable backup option who can help both as a runner and pass catcher. Unfortunately, Barkley's arrival and 3-down reliability have caused Gainwell's role to shrink this season. The ex-Memphis Tiger isn't being used nearly as much this season compared to 2023. Entering Week 18, he saw his offensive snap share drop from 41% to 25%. He'd also only averaged 4.9 touches per game compared to 7.1 last year, resulting in a career low in total scrimmage yards. With Barkley leading the backfield, Gainwell has become expendable this offseason. Gainwell has been a fan favorite for the Eagles, but he likely could get a bigger opportunity elsewhere. His 4-year, $3.80 million deal is coming to an end this offseason. Don't be shocked if he goes elsewhere for a bigger payday and more opportunity. The Eagles on Tuesday afternoon waived quarterback Ian Book. That's the best sign yet that the Eagles expect to have starting quarterback Jalen Hurts, concussion, for their playoff game on Sunday against the Packers. Book was signed to the practice squad on December 26, just a few days after Hurts suffered his concussion in Washington, and was then promoted to the active roster on December 28. Book was one of 3 quarterbacks for each of the last 2 weeks while Hurts was inactive. By releasing Book on Tuesday, the Eagles seemingly expect their other 3 quarterbacks, Hurts, Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee, to be in uniform on Sunday at 4:30 p.m. in the wild-card round. The third quarterback must be on the 53-man roster to utilize the emergency quarterback rule, which allows the third QB to be inactive but available if the top 2 go down. The Eagles will be back on the field on Wednesday afternoon, and it seems likely Hurts will join his teammates at practice for the first time since before the concussion on December 22. Hurts, 26, suffered his concussion early against the Commanders and had to leave after just 12 snaps. He has missed the last 2 games. Head coach Nick Sirianni has been tight-lipped about the concussion but has said Hurts is progressing through the NFL's concussion protocol. This is also seemingly a positive sign for Pickett, who has been dealing with a ribs injury. Pickett broke his ribs against the Commanders and played into the second half against the Cowboys before getting knocked out of that game. McKee finished off the Cowboys and started in Week 18. Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts hasn't played since a December 22 loss to the Washington Commanders because of a concussion, but there is reportedly optimism regarding his availability for Sunday's playoff game against the Green Bay Packers. Multiple sources in contact with Hurts have expressed optimism about him playing against Green Bay, but it ultimately comes down to whether he's able to make it through all the stages of the protocol, including being cleared by an independent neurological consultant, ESPN's Tim McManus reported Tuesday. The Eagles later waived quarterback Ian Book, which was widely seen as a positive sign for Hurts' availability this weekend. Hurts' status going into the game is a primary storyline, especially since Philadelphia's backup situation isn't even settled. Kenny Pickett replaced Hurts against the Commanders and started the following game against the Dallas Cowboys before he took multiple hard hits to his rib injury and was replaced by Tanner McKee. McKee then started the season finale against the New York Giants and led the team to a win. McManus noted head coach Nick Sirianni did not commit to McKee or Pickett as the backup to Hurts on Tuesday. While the other 2 options at least picked up some experience at the end of the season, Philadelphia's Super Bowl chances likely rest on Hurts' availability. The dual-threat quarterback completed 68.7% of his passes for 2,903 yards, 18 touchdowns and 5 interceptions while adding 630 yards and 14 scores on the ground this season. Opposing defenses were often put into situations where they had to pick their poison between Hurts and running back Saquon Barkley, which made the Eagles all the more difficult to stop. That was on full display in the season-opening victory over the Packers when Hurts threw for 278 yards and 2 touchdowns while Barkley ran for 109 yards and scored 3 times. If the duo can replicate that production on Sunday, Green Bay likely has little chance to pull off the upset on the road. However, that relies on Hurts being available, which made Tuesday's update an encouraging one for the Eagles. You could feel the different pulls of legacy and family and team on Eagles running back Saquon Barkley as he stood at his locker, in a sea of cameras and reporters, and spoke about the organizational decision to end his pursuit of Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record. His dad, Alabay, took the news the hardest. He had called Barkley on New Year's Day to check on him, and that's when Barkley relayed the message that coach Nick Sirianni would share with the public the following day. The Eagles plan to rest their starters in the regular season finale against Barkley's former team, the New York Giants, so they could be fresh for the playoffs, leaving Barkley 100 yards shy of hallowed ground. My dad definitely wanted me to play. Selfishly for him, you've got to think about it. However long, if it took a year, if I broke it for someone to break it, or another 40 to 50 years, our last name would have been attached to it, Barkley said. I see it from that side, too. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is winning football games, and he's the one that raised me to be all about the team. So, he can have his little selfish moment, but he'll get over it. Barkley has not been shy about his personal goal. After a training camp practice in August, not long after leaving New York for the rival Eagles on a 3-year, $38 million free agent contract that the Giants showed no interest in matching, Barkley said plainly, "I want to be the best of all time." He took a big swing by putting together one of the best seasons by a running back in NFL history in 2024, now just the 9th player to reach 2,000 rushing yards in a season. Becoming 2Ksa, the nickname Barkley posted on social media shortly after hitting the mark against the Dallas Cowboys in Week 17, was hard-earned. The Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania native went from high school backup to Penn State star to the Giants' number 2 overall pick. There were Pro Bowls and peaks, but also contract squabbles and losing seasons and crushing injuries, most notably a torn right ACL he attributes, in part, to running angry to silence his doubters, an experience that shaped his approach to his MetLife Stadium return in late October. He knows what went into this climb and, as a student of the game and running back history in particular, understands what it would have meant for his place in NFL annals if he had eclipsed Dickerson. But Barkley also knows he quickly endeared himself to a new locker room by humbling himself and prioritizing his teammates, most publicly by turning down the chance to set a personal best in single-game rushing yards against the Giants, telling Sirianni he'd rather see the young guys eat. It's those types of gestures that made a lasting impact at his previous stops, such as the time he won a gold medal in the 100-meter finals for Whitehall High School and then gave it to a girl from another school who had her medal taken away because of a timing malfunction. Or at Penn State when he tipped the waitress every time a fellow student/fan sent him a drink when he went out, despite his best efforts to tuck himself in a back corner and not draw attention. He's also mindful of those who helped elevate him, including a running backs coach who delivered a well-timed confidence boost, a top-tier offensive line and star skill players such as J. Brown, Devonta Smith and Jalen Hurts who sacrificed gaudier statistics and Pro Bowl nods to allow Barkley to shine, his inner circle led by fiancée Anna Congdon, who aided Barkley in climbing the stairs when his knee was torn and his signature massive quads shrunk down to the size of a small person's as he taught himself to walk again. You go through stuff, whether it's injuries or contract negotiations, stuff that I didn't even realize at the time was weighing on me more than I thought because I was always trying to be this superhero and this tough guy, Barkley told ESPN. It's not easy to fight battles on your own. It's easier to do with help, and it's important to surround yourself with a great team. I think you see it now. As a player, I'm able to be on a great team and you're able to see what type of player I am. And that works in life, too. Flowing both from Barkley and toward him, the theme of the season has been putting the greater good above self, which makes it fitting that the regular season ended with Barkley on the sidelines, a football field's length from history but focused on what the Eagles hope is a title run, starting Sunday against the Green Bay Packers in the NFC wildcard round, 4:30 p.m. ET, Fox. That's what I tell my family, Barkley said. We didn't come here and I didn't sign here to break Eric Dickerson's record. We came to win a Super Bowl. Eagles running back coach Jemel Singleton jokingly calls his meeting room the dungeon. It's a small, windowless space on the first floor of the practice facility in South Philly, tucked next to the weight room. The walls are thin enough that when the defensive players are in there lifting weights, the music they blare comes through loud and clear. There's some workout equipment, a whiteboard and a horse-shaped money bank where the players put cash in throughout the year when they feel inclined, which they'll use to aid the homeless around Christmas. Otherwise, the room is pretty empty. It's here that Singleton decided to have his one-on-one with Barkley after training camp, sensing his star back needed some positive reinforcement. Singleton has been coaching since 2000, in the NFL since 2016. Barkley remains the number one back he is evaluated, a talent who can shake and break away from defenders, possessing the rare blend of size and speed, power and agility, smarts and instinct. Barkley, though, was coming off a very public split with the Giants as captured by HBO's Hard Knocks, complete with general manager Joe Schoen detailing the reasons it was imprudent to pay Barkley big money and then calling Barkley to tell him to test the market, a stance Barkley later called a slap in the face. That was the end of a long, unfruitful contract dance that extended over 2 off-seasons. Whispers followed that the 27-year-old back had lost a step, whispers that reached Barkley through his phone. Saquon has a high confidence in himself. He knows what he is capable of, said James Watt Jr., a longtime friend of Barkley's and member of his management team. But when you go through different injuries or you see little murmurs on social media, it kind of gets into your head a little bit and you kind of have to snap yourself back into reality and show yourself who you are and why you've gotten to this point. Singleton had gotten to know Barkley over the course of the spring and summer, and felt he could use one of those pep talks. I put myself in his shoes. You basically had your whole, somewhat, life portrayed through a phone call on TV and everybody is talking about it, Singleton said. How would I feel going through that situation? Out of place. Maybe you feel a little bit like you were discarded by a team that drafted you and all that. That's a tough thing to kind of go through. And I really just felt I needed him to know the confidence I had in him and who I thought he could be as a player and who I thought he was as a player. And I literally just told him that, hey, you're the highest rated player I ever evaluated. If I got to pick who my number one back was, it was you. And now I'm fortunate enough to work with you in this room. He just needed that.